Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight for our webinar on wounds, the good, the bad and the ugly. I'd just like everyone to type in their name and where they're from into our little question box so we can just see where everyone's from tonight. So just while you're doing that, tonight our webinar is on wounds, and you'll get to see some really interesting case studies and how to avoid the most common mistakes that we come across every day as equine vets. Please make sure you've downloaded the workbook so you can write notes, as Dr. Louise will be covering off a lot of information tonight. And you can find this over on the right-hand side under the workbook section. We're also going to give away a bonus in the first 10 minutes of the webinar, so make sure you stick around for that. So please just keep writing in your names and where you're from so we can just say hello to you all tonight, and thank you for joining us again. Okay, ready? So just, was that okay? Like
Yeah.
Don't write, just keep going.
But they will write. Okay.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight for our webinar on wounds, the good, the bad and the ugly. I'd just like everyone to type in our little question box their names and where they're from tonight so we can see where you all are. So tonight our webinar is on wounds, and you'll get to see some really interesting case studies and how to avoid the most common mistakes we come across every day as equine vets. Make sure you've downloaded our workbook so that you can write notes, as Dr. Louise will be going through lots of information tonight. You can find this on the right-hand side under the workbook section. Thanks Liz from Brocklesby in New South Wales. Thank you for joining us tonight. Everyone keep writing in your names there. So we've got someone joining us from Hobart, and they say it's nice and chilly, I bet. It's getting a bit cool over here as well. Hey Ali from Logan Reserve, thanks for joining us. And we've got Yati in Jen, sorry, in New South Wales. How are you going down there? Brendan and Kulana from Queensland. Thanks guys, it's awesome to see you from all around. And we've got Terry from Adair, nice and close to us. And Celia with great hair. Lovely. All right, so also, and Nicola's just joined us. And we've got Tina from Jimboomba, so we do service down that way as well, Tina. Tarina from Bundaberg. Lovely to see so many people on to hear about wounds tonight. Awesome. So we're also going to give away a bonus in the first 10 minutes of the webinar, so make sure you all stick around for that. Got no one else want to put their information in there? Alrighty. So now I'd like to introduce you to our presenter tonight, Dr. Drlouiseconsgrove. Louise was born and bred out west near Roma. Her father was a drover, so many a day was spent in the saddle from the age of 4 when Louise learnt to ride. She is pictured here on her first horse, Cheeky. From the age of 6, Louise knew she wanted to be a vet after she found a ewe having troubles lambing and jumped in to help. After school, she travelled overseas for 4 years before coming home to start studying veterinary science at UQ. Once she graduated, she went straight into 100% equine practice on the Darling Downs in Queensland for several years. While working in this job, she had the opportunity to travel again to the Northern Hemisphere for their breeding season and to get a taste of how the Poms do it. Louise's passion is all things equine, however her main passion is reproduction. After a stint on the Gold Coast and with a young family in tow, she then moved to the Lockyer Valley in Queensland, where she set up her practice named Exclusively Equine Veterinary Services. She has built the practice from scratch, starting out as a sole ambulatory vet to a 4-vet practice with a large emphasis on breeding. The practice has been running now for over 6 years, and Louise has been working with horses as a vet for over 10 years now. I am Cassie, one of the vets who has the pleasure of working with Louise and the Exclusively Equine team. Some of my interests include surgical cases and wound care. Hi Louise, and what can the listeners expect from tonight's presentation?
Is that better?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I have myself muted, so this is the first time I've had to use one of these webcam things. So as everyone may or may not know, I'm technologically disadvantaged. But thank you very much for the introduction. Tonight I'm going to cover some really interesting case studies that we've had with cases that we've seen in our clinic, and we're basically going to cover the main things where clients go wrong. And you know, get some the 5 most common reasons. So that's what we're planning on covering tonight. So without further ado, I will start the presentation because everyone's probably got a big night planned after this. There'll be a lot of studying going on. So I will somehow I will click over to the presentation. Thank you very much for that, Cassie, and we'll see you at the end potentially with helping me answer some questions.
Lovely, thank you.
Thanks for that. Okay, let me just, let's get rid of that webcam. Okay, so I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. If anyone's having any troubles, just type in the question box for me. But I'm hoping that everyone can see. Oh, I'm being told that I am echoey. Let me. Okay, no, there we go. That should be good. So can everyone see my screen? Let me just see. Everyone, so hopefully, oh no, we've still got issues. Let me just turn that off. And okay, so that should be okay. So hopefully, okay, perfect. Okay, sorry, we always have technical difficulties because I do struggle with technology. So let me just, sorry, I just had to shut the door. Someone's telling me it's a bit echoey, so I'm hoping that that's a bit better. So thank you for the introduction from Cassie, and let me get this started. So like the title tells you, we're going to be covering wounds in horses. We're going to have a case study on the good, a case study on the bad, and a case study on the ugly. So I just want to rehash what we went over in the videos because sometimes people are jumping in here and they haven't seen the video. So just really quickly, there's 2 golden rules for wounds. The first one is location. So this is the most important rule, and it relates to where the wound is on the horse. So anything below the knee and hock is a great marker. Anything that's below that really needs to be seen by a vet because there's really not a great deal of space between the skin and underlying important structures. And the other one is size doesn't matter. So a 2 millimetre wound that's 10 centimetres deep is worse than a 10 centimetre wide wound that's only 2 millimetres deep. So location and size are really, really important. So once you've sort of thought about those things, the next thing you have to think about with wounds is the 4 phases. Again, we covered these in the videos. So if you haven't seen the videos, please go back and look at them. They will be available for a while. Go back and just have a look at them, and this presentation will make more sense. But every wound, it does not matter what size that wound is, there's always the 4 phases of healing. And that is the inflammatory phase, the debridement phase, the repair phase, and the maturation phase. Now, like I said, all of these phases have to occur for a wound to heal. Some can take, you know, hours to occur and only last for an hour or 2, and then sometimes they can last for days, weeks, months, and years. So every phase must have happened before the wound will heal, and some phases won't start until the phase before them finishes. So they really interlock. So the first phase is the inflammatory phase. Again, we're just going to race through this so that if anyone has any questions afterwards, you can go back to the videos. And I'm just seeing a comment there from Claudia. I never received the video on my email when I signed up. So look, they are available, and I will get Priscilla onto it tomorrow. Priscilla's probably listening and cursing me. But if you didn't receive the links to the videos, we'll shoot them through tomorrow for you. But back to the inflammatory phase. So this is the immediate phase. As soon as that wound is damaged, this is the phase that kicks in. So it happens immediately. And inflammation is clearly the most important part of this phase. And so the body sends inflammatory mediators in, which are, clotting factors, fibrin, all of those sorts of things to basically help the animal wall off the infection or the damage. So a massive clot forms so that the horse doesn't bleed out. It's a big part of this phase. And then immune cells enter, which are what we call neutrophils or white blood cells. That's the picture on the right is of a neutrophil. And these are like the body's Pac-Man. It looks a bit like a Pac-Man there. And it just roams around the body looking for bacteria and damage and just gobbles it up and eats it. So these are really important factors in the inflammatory phase. Sorry, my blasted mouse every time I click up there. So the second phase is what we call the debridement phase. Now, this is where neutrophils are recruited, so those white cells. They enter into the area and just basically walling off the bacteria, stopping it from spreading, getting debris and everything out. And this part of the healing process is what we call the pus phase. So you'll see a lot of pus if the wound is really contaminated. And people often panic that pus means infection. Not necessarily. It just means that the immune system is working and it's doing its job. So don't panic if there's pus, because it does mean that the body is doing its own thing. The problem is if you've got too much pus, then that means that you could be using, because your body only produces a certain amount of neutrophils in a certain time. So if you've got a completely contaminated wound, your body will use up all, the horse's body will use up all its neutrophils and have nothing left. So pus is good, but excessive pus can be a problem. So the third phase is the repair phase, and the most important part of this phase is that granulation tissue or proud flesh. So the proud flesh is required to allow the skin to close over and cause a scar. So if you don't have that proud flesh, your wound is not going to heal. But then on the other hand, if you have excessive proud flesh, the skin borders can't, sort of mold over and join, because the granulation tissue is just bubbling out and preventing that epithelialization occurring, so that skin to contract and meet. So the repair phase is I think the longest phase, or the most variable phase, I suppose. So your inflammatory phase is immediate and usually lasts sort of that 2 days. The debridement phase, again, it sort of kicks in a few hours post wound happening, and it can take a good few days to occur. And then the repair phase starts happening, and this one can sometimes take up to 12 months or so to occur, to finalise. So this repair phase, the granulation tissue or proud flesh management is the really important factor in this phase. And then we have the maturation phase. And again, this can sometimes be the longest. If you've got bone involvement and things like that, this can take up to 12 months to occur as well. So, and close management in this phase is really important to limit that scar and make it as minimal as possible. And just remembering that scars are always weaker than the surrounding tissue, because you've got collagen and fibrin there. It's never as strong knitted down as the surrounding area. So like I said earlier, all of these phases are really thoroughly explained in the videos. And I noticed Jen there said she didn't get the videos either. We will rectify that tomorrow, and you can go back to the link and watch the videos, and then you can re-watch the webinar as well. So don't panic if you miss the videos. But that first part will be a little bit rushed for you, which I go into a lot more depth in the videos. So I hope everyone's had dinner. I probably should have warned everyone before I put this slide up. If you're eating dinner at the moment, maybe look away now. So our first case study is what I call the good. And you probably look at that and go, oh my God, if that's the good, I hate to see the bad and the ugly. But it's more so, this is a great wound because in my rule, it's not below the hock or below the knee, it's actually above the knee. And even though it's gory and disgusting, this foal has really only ripped the skin off. So looks horrendous, but it's actually not too bad. So this case study was an 8-month-old thoroughbred foal. The owner decided it was time to wean, which we all do if we have young ones. It has to happen, it's inevitable. But the foal decided it wasn't quite ready. So it decided to go through 3 fences to get back to its mother. Unfortunately, one of those was a barbed wire fence, and it managed to get itself hooked up into the fence, and it was quite frantic and and stressful, I suppose, when we got there. Now the owner rang us straight away, and we got out there. And you can see, I hope from the picture, it's quite contaminated. There's bits of dirt in there, there was grass, there was mud, and it was pretty packed and feral. So, yes, they rang us out to come and have a look at this. So, we sedated the foal, cleaned it out thoroughly. We did attempt to stitch this one. However, because of the movement and the dead space, it did break down. But this wound, so then we just used it as an open wound. We treated it as an open wound. And then this photo is 3 weeks on from the original injury. So it's got a beautiful, healthy healing bed. And you can see that granulation tissue is coming over. And that's looking, not too bad. I'm pretty happy with that. This foal was confined as much as we could to keep it sane. And they were given antibiotics. It was given antibiotics, powdered antibiotics, and just confinement and bandage changing every 3 to 4 days. And this next one, so that was it after 3 months. Now, I'd be pretty happy with that considering how it started out. So 3 months on, this foal didn't need to be confined, and then it was just managing the scar. And this is actually the foal. That's actually 6 months later, and you cannot tell where that scar was. If you pat the foal, you can actually feel that it's a bit harder, but other than that, you can't tell what happened there. So I'm just going to try and go through some of these while we're going. So barbed wire. So Terry's saying, we were once told barbed wire fences were really good because horses won't pull if they're caught in it because yeah, and so you took all your barbed wire down. Vet student here, when you, so to answer your question, Terry, I actually personally like barbed wire fence purely because of that. If you've got plain wire fence, you find that the horse starts to struggle and panic in it because it's not hurting them, and they get strangulating injuries where the wire just tightens down and strangulates. A strangulating injury is far, far, far worse than an open, disgusting wound like the one that this horse had. And I do agree, barbed wire hurts, so they stop and they go, oh, this hurts. This foal was hung up in the fence, but it wouldn't move because it was hurting. Where if it was plain wire, you do worry because strangulating injuries release, they release free radicals and toxins, and the whole circulatory system starts to come undone. So I do much prefer barbed wire. We do have barbed wire on our property, but it's only where my horses go because horse owners unfortunately don't like the look of barbed wire. They think it's dangerous, but I personally do prefer barbed wire for that reason. So we've got a vet student, Megan. Hi. When you stitched initially, did you put draining holes at the bottom? Yes, I did. I didn't put that picture in there because it looked beautiful once I stitched it, but it only lasted the 7 days. So yes, I actually put 3 or 4 drains in this one, and I actually put this one on trimethoprim sulfur antibiotic purely because the owner couldn't inject and they were a bit tight on money. So trimethoprim sulfur powder was used for this one, but I would much prefer penicillin for this one. And Simone said, was the honey Manuka honey? So we will cover this later. No, it wasn't Manuka honey. It was actually just unprocessed honey. So yeah, I thought that was pretty impressive. Kim has said, would you fence an entire paddock with barbed wire? Look, I would. Yeah, I have no. We see that many injuries where we have to put horses down because they've had a strangulating wound. Then barbed wire can mush it up and you can't stitch it, which can be a problem sometimes. But I've seen in the many years I've been doing this, I find much worse injuries on plain wire than barbed wire. So that's just my take on it. So getting back to this case study, sorry, I get sidetracked very easily. So this case study, so the summary with this one is, yes, the owner called us as soon as possible. The owner diligently followed our directions, so she kept the horse confined. She, gave it its antibiotics. She did everything by the book. We did give it antibiotics. She confined the horse well. She did do bandage changes, and in this location we had some pretty funky bandaging that we rigged up. We actually got some women's stockings and put them over the horse's head, and then put the leg parts up underneath the horse's leg and then tied it back on itself. So we did manage to get packing in there. And then to limit that scar, they actually just used body white ointment once it was pretty much healed. That's what they used on this one. But the last point I've put is, vet or not, should they have gotten a vet or could they have done this themselves? So I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to say I think they could have done this themselves. The only thing they needed us for was to sedate the foal to clean it. But if they weren't stressed, as stressed as they were, the owners, and saw this horrific injury, and if they had calmed themselves down and the foal would have calmed down, I think they would have been able to clean that themselves. And stitching it did absolutely nothing. As you can see, it all broke down. So, if this is not a, going to be the next Grand Prix horse, I think this is a wound that you potentially could have gotten away with. Antibiotics were just a precaution. So as long as this foal was up to date with tetanus and you could get that wound cleaned properly without sedation, this one could have been a do-it-yourself. So as horrific as it looked, I think there were no major structures in that area that were damaged, and it was just a matter of time for healing. So that is case study 1. Let me just make sure there's no questions. Yep. Okay, so that's case study 1. Case study 2 is going to be the bad. So this is case study 2. Now this is a hock. I don't know if you can see my mouth there. This is a hock of a young Arab colt, and where I'm pointing to at the moment is actually the bone. So you can see right down into that area and see a nice little bone there and this massive, basically flesh-eating hole. So let me just go back over here. We have got a question typed in. So Terry's saying, that's my problem, I panic. And it's human nature. You see blood and go, oh my God. And I think that's the big thing. If you just sort of, calm yourself down and hopefully with these videos, you look at the, the location, the size, calm yourself down, and 9 times out of 10 you can get away with it. But this is that rule, so it's on the hock. So if you don't know your anatomy, get the vet out. So this was a colt. He got a little too frisky talking to a girl over the fence, and he decided he'd have a go at it, but he didn't quite make it. Now, we weren't able to see this horse for a few days after the injury. So this is what it looked like when we got there. So the owner had cleaned it, had given it a bit of a disinfectant and put a bandage on it straight away. And the horse was up to date with tetanus. So they decided to not really, they'll see how they go. This is what we were presented with. And I just freaked, I just went, oh my goodness, I can see bone, that's not good. If ever you can see bone, not good. So with this one, we hospitalised him. And he was dog lame on this leg. He couldn't put it down to the ground. He was extremely lame. So we ended up confining him, hospitalising him, and putting him on penicillin gentamicin combination and bute straight away. So as you can see, I haven't put the times on here. So the picture on the left was actually 2 weeks later, and the picture on the right was 2 weeks after that. So 4 weeks after the wound had occurred, this is what we were confronted with. So you can see it's granulating up beautifully. We can see no more bone. It's looking good. So that one healed up quite nicely. And then again, you can see the one on the left is so 6 weeks after it happened. And then this wound, the scar that's left on the right-hand side was that was actually 2 months after it. No, it was more than that. Sorry, that was 4 months after it hurt itself. Is the picture with the scar. And I actually went to Hendra vaccinate this horse not that long ago, and I could not pick which leg he was hurt on. So that's how how well the lady managed to get this scar. Was I could not tell which leg. So I had to actually go back to the pictures to remember that it was on the left leg. So this one was amazing. But again, so in summary for this one, so that's just another view of that wound. Yes, there was a delayed vet visit in this one, and they should have gotten this earlier. I mean, they were just fortunate that the bacteria wasn't too aggressive, and it hadn't quite gotten into the joint by the time we saw the horse. So, but we did start him on very strong antibiotics. He was up to date with tetanus. We confined him really well. But they were the most diligent owners. I think they felt so guilty because they didn't get the vet out, that they were the most diligent owners, and it was a credit to them what they did with this wound. They used honey on it, and then to limit the scar, fish oil tablets were used on the scar. So, and like I say, you can't tell which leg now was the one that was injured. It was just amazing, and I was very hesitant to think that this horse would be sound, but he happily runs around the paddock and doesn't have any, I think he's a little bit stiff in winter, but there's no major lameness or anything like that with him. So he no longer has testicles. That also helped the situation, but he was, yeah, it was quite amazing to see how he healed with that one. Now let me just, with the question was the fish oil tablets. They were actually opened and put on the scar. Thanks for that, Jen. Yeah, so they were just used nip the capsule lid off and then just put it on the wound. So that's case number 2. So that's the bad. Now we're going to go to the ugly. So again, a bit of a pre-warning. Don't be eating dinner. So this one was a 12-year-old stock horse gelding. He was chased through a fence by some local dogs, and the owner was woken to his dog, who's an inside dog, barking and going off his chops. So the fellow got up, thinking the dog needed to go to the toilet. He got up, opened the door, and then the dog wouldn't go because he wasn't following him. So the gentleman got his, bathrobe on and went out, and he came across his horse stuck in a fence and a leg like that. So I was called out at 3:10 in the morning, and this I didn't take a photo then because it was a bit too dark, and the owner was so beside himself I didn't sort of have the opportunity to. So this was taken 12 hours post-injury. Sorry, just as a going back, Nicole has asked, does fish oil work like vitamin E? Yeah, yep, it's perfect. So vitamin E is another alternative. So anyway, back to this case study 3. So the gentleman was faced with 2 options. One was euthanasia, and one was a long time and a lot of care. So this horse, he raised this, he bred this horse and he raised it. So euthanasia was not an option. So we quickly got the farrier out to make a special shoe to give this horse the ability to be, so because of he's taken all of those tendons, that's actually bone, that's a cannon bone that you can see there. He completely severed all of his tendons, and it was only hanging by a thread by about an inch at the back is all this horse had intact. So the skin completely contracted down, and he only had that inch at the back, which absolutely astounded me that he still had blood flow to this leg. So I was coming out every second day to see this horse for a very long time, but we managed to clean and debride the wound straight away. Like, it was literally, the wound was so fresh it wasn't funny. And we ended up putting a cast on this horse's leg, and we then, so this was 2 weeks after, so sorry, 1 week after, he started to get a few rub marks with the cast, so we took it off after 1 week, and you can see how much granulation tissue is already starting there from that wound. That was, let me just see if I can go back. Yeah, so that was the original wound. I haven't taken a side shot there, but you can sort of get the appreciation of how much granulation tissue is happening there. And then, so this is 2 weeks on, again and you can see the blood supply. Proud Flesh has a brilliant blood supply to it, so it was enough to keep that wound, that leg with enough circulation to stop it from falling off. You can't really get a good appreciation of the shoe that we put on this horse's foot, but it's got a toe extension which allows him to place, because when he walked, that leg sort of flopped. It had no extensor tendons to be able to place his foot. So his flexor tendon. So we put an extension toe shoe on this horse, and that enabled him to walk better. So let me just. So we've got a question here. When initially cleaning that wound after sedating, would you need to block the leg for pain relief? Look, this, would the horse let you touch it initially? So this is from Megan. Megan, this horse had so much adrenaline running around, and there was no nerves. There was one nerve left at the back of the leg that had any, that was viable. So this horse, I didn't actually need to sedate him much. I think I had to sedate him to get him out of the fence, was all I sedated him for. So he was a beautiful boy. So yeah, that's got the little toe extension on it, that leg. Let me just go down here. And then this is the wound. 8 weeks on is how these two were taken, and it is just amazing how much granulation tissue grew in that time. So we were using, so we're changing this bandage every 2 or 3 days, and we were using honey. We used a silver zinc-based product called Silverzine at the beginning while that bone was exposed, because you don't want bone to dry out, because the top layer of bone will lift off. So it's really important to keep that moist and free of bacteria. You could have used honey, but we were wanting to go something pretty potent while the bone was visible. So we used that and then switched to honey at this stage, and then still kept it wrapped for quite some time. So yeah, I was really, really amazed at the dedication of this horse owner. And so this, case study, well, he got us out straight away. In this situation, I think, he did need a cast put on to stabilise that leg and just help him to not damage it any further. See, we only had an inch at the back that was still attached all the way down the length of that leg. So Jen, the product was actually called Silverzine. So it's called Flumixin now. Silverzine has gone off the market. Not Flumixin, what am I talking about? Flamazine. Flamazine is the product. It's they use it on burns patients and things like that. I'm pretty sure you can buy it from the chemist. And you can get bandages impregnated with this Silverzine product, which is called, I'm going to go, Viscopaste is the bandage. And it's actually a wrap that has the silver, the zinc product in it. And it's an antibacterial. So I also have a question here from Liz. What did you put on the bone directly in the first instance? So it was that I actually used the Viscopaste bandage, and it's impregnated with this zinc. It's a messy, messy product. You've got to wear gloves and it ends up everywhere. But I actually wrapped that around the entire wound and kept that directly onto the bone. So it was called Viscopaste is the product. and then we switched to honey. Is there any concern that the other leg will swell up, and if so, how do you manage that on top of the wounded leg? So this is from Simone. Is there any concern that the other leg will swell up? Look, it won't swell up, but you put the other tendons in an extreme amount of pressure. So we did have support wraps on all of the other legs, but particularly the other hind leg, we had a support wrap, or you nowadays have tendon boots that you can put on them, and it just keeps those tendons supported. But the biggest problem with these wounds is the opposite limb. You often get bow tendons. So he was actually, I was amazed at how much weight he'd actually put on this really quickly. So after 8 weeks, you know, he was pretty much walking on that leg, which just astounded me. So, but you do worry if they are, yeah, oh sorry, Jen, please spell Viscopaste is V for Victor, I-S for Sam, C-O-P-A-S-T-E, and the Flamazine is F for fish, L-A-Z, oh no, sorry, F-L-A-M-A-Z-I-N-E. So Flamazine. If any of you are nurses, you can often get the human one. Have you got a... no, Liz, I don't have a picture of the special bandage. It's really not that exciting. It's just it comes in a cardboard box, and then you open the cardboard box and it's in a plastic sealed bag, and it literally is just a bandage on a roll, and you just, you know, literally wrap it around like a normal bandage. It's just gooey. It's just full of zinc cream. So yeah, it's really really fantastic product. So and then a support. So this boy, he'll happily be paddock sound. He was actually a team roping horse. I can't imagine he'll ever go back to that, but he will definitely be paddock sound, and he is paddock sound now. So you know, that was, yeah, pretty amazing. This horse, I honestly, you know, said to the fellow, "Are you sure you don't want to put this horse down? Because I think you've got no chance." But he was just so dedicated and loved this horse that I was astounded. So I'm so glad I didn't convince him or tell him that was his only option. It did cost him a small fortune in bandaging, but he still got his boy. So, so that was, yeah, he was a beautiful boy, that one. So I'm just throwing in a case study of another one. So we've done the good, the bad, the ugly, and then this one I've classed the downright wrong. So this horse, this is a recent one, and I get so mad often. So this was an 8-year-old thoroughbred gelding. Now this horse had won so many ribbons from this owner. He was the most amazing horse you could imagine. He was just big, he was beautiful, he just was amazing. And like I say, he won many hack shows. He was just to die for. He was up to date with tetanus, so that's the only positive I will give this owner. The owner found this horse stuck in a fence, and he waited for 2 weeks to get a vet. I just can't comprehend this. So this is a hop on a horse. So when this horse arrived, it was like an anatomy lesson. You could see right into the hop joint. So you could see joint capsule. Well, you couldn't see joint capsule. There was no capsule left. There was just joint. There were just bones. So I cannot comprehend how this horse was not given veterinary care beforehand. So anyway, I won't harp on it. We will keep going. So this was the day that the horse arrived to us. So this was our initial consult, and there was every excuse under the sun. You know, he didn't get home till late at night, didn't see it, just put a bandage on it. You know, I can write a book on the excuses. This horse was dog lame, so he looks as though he's standing on it in this picture because I had him sedated to the eyeballs to try and clean this wound. So this wound has got grey areas, it looks really unhealthy, it just looks, and it stunk. It just looked and smelled as though it was a dead, dying, flesh-eating, disgusting. This horse had not had antibiotics and had not had a vet to it. I think the man gave him some bute, a little bit of bute here and there. So anyway, we were there to fix this horse. So This was the day that we saw this horse. This was 4 days on, so this was with intensive treatment. So we started him on antibiotics, we started him on honey, and so the body wants to heal itself. If you give it the right environment, it will do so quickly. But we couldn't believe it. 4 days after just putting a bandage on, we put the silver product on, the viscose paste on this wound, and that's how quickly this wound granulated up. Like, it's amazing how quickly it will turn around if you just do the right thing by the horse. So there was no question this horse will struggle to get its paddock sound because it's involving a joint, and joints have bones that, you know, have to glide over each other and whatnot. So this horse, he'll have arthritis for the rest of his life, and trying to manage that is going to be a struggle. But this was the wound 4 days after we saw it. And so you've got to remember this wound was 2 weeks old, so the inflammatory phase was sort of done and dusted. The debridement phase was still trying to happen, but this was in the repair phase. So it was down the timeline of the repair phase trying to kick in while the debridement phase was happening. So once we got the debridement phase under control, in as much as we got antibiotics in there, because this horse had used up all of its neutrophils, it had no immune system left because it was trying to push the proverbial up the hill. So once we came in and gave it, you know, boosted its immune system, gave it something that will kill that bacteria, this wound just turned around like lightning. So now the debridement phase was, you know, pretty much done. We've gotten it clean, and the granulation tissue just appeared from nowhere. So, you know, this was just beautiful to see how quickly this horse turned around once it had just that little bit of help that it needed. So again, this was 10 days on. So yes, the granulation tissue is getting a little bit out of control. In the picture on the left, you can see the granulation tissue or proud flesh is starting to just bulge over the edges a little bit. We didn't care in this situation because we wanted that sealed over and protected. So this boy was great. You know, he dealt with bandage changes and everything perfectly. So, you know, we managed to get that wound, you know, a lot smaller. Let me just, we have some questions. So, would you use Proud-Aid? How do you rate Proud-Aid product? Oh, I hate the hard questions, Jen. I don't use Proud-Aid, don't like it, don't find it works. I'm happy to be proven wrong. So no, I don't use it and I can't rate it. Have used it, but yeah, I'm just not a fan of it. We will cover in the webinar what I do with Proud Flesh. Yeah, so I will cover that. It's expensive. Oh, okay. So that's maybe why I don't like it. I'm a bit cheap when it comes to wounds, because you can, this horse, the fellow spent $3,500 just on bandaging materials for this horse. So I try and keep the cost down as much as I can, and there's much better things. If Proud-Aid is expensive, there's plenty of other things out there, Jen. So that probably answers my question, or your question. But so I just go back here. And again, this is the horse, I think 3 days afterwards. I don't have any further pictures of this horse because unfortunately the horse had to go home. I hear that the horse is paddock sound. I hope that the horse is paddock sound. And I'm unable to check this, but it just broke my heart, this one. Let me just check what we have. We've just had a few questions come in at once. There are so many products out there and lots of money to be spent. So this is from Rhiannon. Are you able to send out or post a list of essentials for every horse first aid and tackle? So Rhiannon, we can do that. We actually have a list of what we like or we recommend our clients to have in the pack, so we can certainly do that. What are my thoughts on wound wax? So this is from Kim, wound wax and poultice. So I haven't had a great deal of exposure with this product. However, I love it in open wounds that you can't wrap and things like that. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So Liz, Now, let me just see Liz's question. I was told by an old horseman to use clay poultice on a large open wound on front tendons, and it did work much better than the Crown Aid product. I used Tough Rock and it was brilliant. The other one I have been told is collagen. Oh, sorry, and it was brilliant. So, and then collagen, yeah, Jen, that actually works better, but I've got a really, really cheap thing for you. Liz, look, I don't know if you've ever used the clay poultice on large open wounds on front tendons, and it did work much better than the, oh, hang on, I think I'm getting my question. Oh, yeah. So those Tough Rock poultices, I absolutely love them, but I would never, ever, ever, ever use it on an open wound with tendons involved, because the clay poultice is actually mud. That's it, mud. It is a, what do you call it, a volcanic mud, and it has amazing properties, but on open wounds we just see horrendous problems with using the clay poultice on large, on wounds around tendons and stuff. Open wounds, maybe, but yeah, not tendons. Could I please, so Nicole wants the list, yep, that's not a problem. Okay, so back to our case study 4. So the summary for this one is, look, no antibiotics were given. This horse could have had a much better career. If we had have seen this horse initially, I would be confident that we could have this horse rideable and potentially showing again, you know, within 3 or 4 months from this happening, where as it is, this horse now will hopefully stay comfortable in a paddock, but that's all we can hope for. You know, otherwise this wound was healing well. It turned around, it was beautiful, it looked great, but the joint damage was done weeks before we got to see it. So we use animal intex right at the beginning to just help draw out all of that gunk and dead rotting tissue. We used that for 2 days, and then we used the honey after that to get it healing nicely. So that wraps up our case study. Now I just want to go over the 5 most common mistakes horse owners use. And Liz, unfortunately, I'm going to burst your bubble there with the clay because it'll be coming up. So the number one, the most common mistake horse owners make is not seeking the correct attention quickly. Now, I'm not here to tell you that every wound needs a vet. That's totally untrue. You do not need to get a vet. But if it's involving joints and if it's involving tendons, don't muck around. Just get a vet out. It's going to cost you more in the long run to not have a vet out and give you the correct antibiotics and, you know, bute straight away than waiting 2 weeks like this horse. I mean, this fellow potentially may still have to put his horse down. If he can't be comfortable in a paddock grazing, then there's no point keeping him going because it's cruel. So not seeking attention quickly is the number one most common mistake horse owners do. We are daily getting, we had a wound today where it hurt itself a week ago, and its heel bulb is still hanging off, and you know, this horse now has a bone infection. So to give you an idea, if your horse has a bacteria that ends up entering the bone, the minimum cost for antibiotics is about $200 to $400 for a course. A bottle of penicillin will cost you $60 to $70 for a long course. So I don't know, math isn't my strong point, but I'd rather have an after-hours fee of, let's go extreme and say $350, $400 because you live, you know, ages away from the vet. $400 plus $78 for your penicillin, and you know, $478. But you've got to pay a normal call out, the cost of the bone drugs. You know, it's a false economy. Just bite the bullet and get the vet out. If it's a Saturday, don't wait till Monday or see how you go for a week. If it's over a joint or a tendon, just get the vet out. If it's an open wound, a big open wound, you know, above on the torso, or you know, those rumps, those sorts of areas, upper thigh, all those things, you know, give it a whirl, see how you go, but don't leave it if it's over important structures. So the second problem we have is people using the wrong products. I do have Tough Rock there as our #1 example because we constantly go out and see people putting this product on open wounds with tendons and whatnot. Now, I love Tough Rock for, you know, swollen back legs, those sorts of things. But as soon as the skin is broken, I do not put volcanic mud anywhere near my horse's injuries. I'll use an animal intex poultice, which will help draw, but it won't put mud in, because it's not a sterile mud. It's literally just mud. An amazing product, but it is just mud. Sorry, Terry, you have just said, would you accept a photograph of a wound to see if a vet is required? We do this all the time, Terry. Our clients will send us a photograph, and we will say, yes, you do, no, you don't. And I'd say it's 50-50. 50% of the time we come out, 50% we don't. So, but it depends on who your vet is, whether they are willing to do this or not. Some vets, you know, take a really strong stance on it and say, no, we must see it. But yeah, we tend to get that all the time. So, yep, we're happy with that. Oh, were you vet? So, yep, you can always send us a photo, Terry. Sorry, Terry, I didn't see you there, maybe. Yeah, so that's fine. Now, the other product, Dermapred, we are forever getting people saying, oh, I put that green stuff on and, you know, the wound's just not healing. Again, I love Dermapred. Dermapred will help disappear, that scar disappear overnight. But if you put it on in the inflammatory or the debridement phase, it will actually double the healing time. So it actually has a cortisone in it. It's not a very strong concentration, but it's strong enough to prevent the inflammatory cells to come in, which you actually need. So it actually slows the healing process if you use it in the first 2 phases. After that, you can use it and no problems at all. So green cream, leave it until later. And the other thing is, you know, people have always got penicillin left over from this horse, that horse, you know, your neighbour's got some. That's great. If you've got no other option, give it some penicillin. It's not going to hurt. But antibiotics need a course. They need to be given for long enough to work. So a one-off shot of penicillin it's not, you know, it's going to kill an eighth of what's there. So, you know, penicillin is required for a longer period of time to be able to act like neutrophils and kill all of the bacteria there. So just giving a one-off shot of penicillin is, you know, a bit pointless. So always, you know, ring for advice, but don't ever use antibiotics left over. And the same as if you had a miniature that, you know, cut itself and the vet left some penicillin and then your 17-hand horse cuts itself. You might, you know, it's hard to figure out the dose if you're not using it all the time. We've studied the antibiotics, we understand how it works, so just ring a vet and get advice. You know, you don't want to be underdosing your horse or using the wrong antibiotics in the wrong situation. So that's the second #1 problem for horse owners. So the third problem would be poor bandaging or no bandaging. So you know, this is a common thing that we'll see is these white hairs that are coming and they're rub marks or friction marks. So the bandage was put on too tight and it's caused lack of circulation and it causes the hair to die. So you'll often see horses that, especially race horses and trotters and things like that, they do tend to get these, you know, they'll like to put wraps on them on race day and then forget to take them off because they're too buggered and then they come out 2 days later and they've shrunk. So white hairs can, you know, be an indicator that poor bandaging has been a problem. Sorry, I have a question here. Tough Rock, can you put it on too thickly or thinly? No, I mean, when I put it on fairly liberally, and I love to put cling wrap around it. So I do, we use it quite a bit when you get that rhinovirus heading through and all of the horse's legs seem to puff up and it's always the day before a show or something. So we put it on fairly liberally and then we put the cling wrap around. And I just find that a lot of the time you put it on and it dries and cracks off really quickly, where that cling wrap just keeps it moist and helps draw out more of the edema out of the legs. So I've never seen it put on too thickly, probably too thinly. It cracks off too easy. Can you bandage over tough rock? Look, Kim, I don't, because I find the bandage draws out the moisture. The cling wrap, I think, locks it in and it helps draw out more, if that makes sense. I mean, you could bandage over tough rock, but I don't think it would be advisable. Do you put bandages over the cling wrap? No, I just tend to put cling wrap on. If you want to make it look pretty, you could, but no, you don't need to. No. And then the other thing with poor bandaging is if it's too tight, that's one thing, but if it's too loose, it's there causing friction, slipping up and down the leg, and if you've ever had a wound over a joint, it seems to pucker and just rub and cause dramas in that, in that area, which just prevents the healing process from occurring because you're constantly causing trauma in those areas. Liz is asking, doesn't it fall off? No, the cling wrap, if you wrap it around on itself, it always sticks to itself. You know how it's always annoying? You try and rip it off the roll and it bloody, hooks up on itself and it gets stuck. So I find the cling wrap just stays. It's like a bandage. It sticks down on itself and it works beautifully. How tight is too tight? Look, Claudia, this is the million-dollar question. I always say if you can put your finger, one or two, like I try to put 2 fingers down. If you're using that vet wrap or rip wrap, if you can put 2 fingers in between your horse's leg and the bandage, that 2 fingers, no, so sorry, 1 finger high, but I try and fit 2 in width-wise, if that makes sense. Then that's a good tightness. But if you're not sure, always use cotton wool because you can never do it too tight on cotton wool. But we always use this elastoplast at the top of our bandaging to stop them slipping down. So we always do the skenoplast or the vet wrap or the rip wrap. So the non-sticky, they just stick onto themselves. And then at the top you put, so vet wrap, Coflex is another name. There's so many products out there. Coflex, you just have to be really careful. The really cheap ones, when they get wet or sweat moisture, they actually constrict. And that's what happens with a lot of these cheap ones, because I've got a client and she was so excited because she bought some vet wrap or Coflex and it was like $1.50 a roll, and I warned her that just be careful, it could, and sure enough she came back and the bandaging actually wore through the sesamoid bones on the fetlock and the horse was put down because she didn't realise she was doing it too tight. So just be so careful about, and if you are concerned, change the bandage daily, because I'd rather have a bandage changed daily and know that it's not too tight and have circulation going through that leg than having it on for 4 days and realising that you bug it up. So, it's so important to make sure you're putting your bandaging on properly. But your cotton wool gives you some leeway, gives you flexibility, and then if you put a skeiner or a sticky elastoplast at the top, it'll stop it from slipping down the horse's leg. And I always try to involve 2 joints. So, if the wound's on the cannon, I always start from the above the knee, go down over the cannon and then over the fetlock as that my sort of anchor points. So poor bandaging is number 3 on our list. Number 4 is proud flesh control. This is the part, especially over joints, like when it's over the fetlock or the knee, the amount of proud flesh just gets out of control. It just, it just seems to be this never-ending production of granulation tissue. And as you can see in this wound, it's bubbling up over the surrounding skin. And in this situation, the skin can't contract and come down and form a scar because it's sort of got to grow up over the proud flesh. So I am recording this, so it will be evidence. For proud flesh, I absolutely love bluestone or copper sulfate. So it's cheap as chips. It's about $9 for a kilo, and I can tell you I've had a kilo for about, when did I last buy a kilo? Look, it would have to be over 3 years ago. So that's how long it's taken, and I've still got plenty left. So what I do, and especially this wound in the picture, you can see it's moist, it's got the ability for bluestone to stick on it. So what I do is I get my finger, wet it a little bit, and I dab it in, just one finger, dab it in, and then dab it around those borders. So dab it into the bluestone, dab it on the border, dab it into the bluestone, dab it onto the border, all the way around that wound, and I leave it open. And then within 24 hours, I come back and hose that bluestone off, the copper sulfate off, and I can guarantee you it will eat proud flesh overnight. So it is so fast. Now, the caveat to that is it is that fast and that non-selective. It will eat healthy flesh and it will eat through tendons. So that's why I only put a sparing amount on, and I'll do it once a day for maybe 2 or 3 days until I'm happy with the level, and then I leave it. So you have to be super careful over, you know, areas with tendons, and I don't get it on non-proud flesh, so I make sure I'm so careful to not get it on the skin. Sometimes it's easier to mix it with Vaseline, which I mix in 50-50, so 50% bluestone and 50% copper, 50% Vaseline. That makes it sticky, so it will stick where you put it. So I've just gotten 1,000 questions come in because I thought that might happen. So we've got here, can you type out all the names of these different products, please? I will have to email you them tomorrow because I don't think I can, or maybe I can type down here. Let me just see if I can, because that might have made it easier earlier on. So let me just see if I type that in there. We'll do a little, no, that's not going to work. Okay, I may have to do that tomorrow, but I can type out all these products for you, Liz. So just on the border, not on the whole wound. Look, Liz, when it, sorry, Kerry, when it's bubbling out like this, I will eat that whole area down in one hit. But I'm really confident with my bluestone use, and I know what my limits are. So if you're starting out, just do the borders, because then your skin will contract a bit, and then you can do a bit more, and then it will contract a bit. But if that proud flesh gets out of control, just shove the, you know, bluestone on the whole thing. Yeah, so that's, I hope that answers your question, Kerry. Do you have specific instructions for this? Not really, Liz. It is just a case of if you see that granulation tissue bulging over the surrounding tissue, just use it sparingly. And I only do it for one or 2 days and then let it settle. And you'll see that skin just contract before your eyes. Like, you'll notice that if the skin's not contracting because of bubbling proud flesh, it just, you know, has this massive urge to contract. So, but again, 50-50 with the Vaseline is, I quite like it. So, well, I was trying that. My husband is at home trying to tell me to put it in the question box, and yeah, it's not typing there, Jace. That's me technologically disadvantaged. Yeah, so no, let me just, yeah, no, it's not going to work, so that's okay. Everyone's helping me out now. Priscilla said she can send them all out in email tomorrow, so we will do that. Terry, yes, we do sell a basic first aid kit. We kind of only do it for our clients, being yourself, because it costs too much to post out. But anyone in our area, we have a basic. So we've got a basic, gold, and then a premium first aid kit. And we have all of the sort of basics in it. So onto a PowerPoint slide. So Liz, yes, I have done that. We have covered first aid kits and emergencies before, so I can actually probably send you that PowerPoint presentation which has everything on it. So yes, Priscilla's just saying gosh, it's good. She can add that onto the email if everyone likes. So Priscilla's my my go-to person. So thank you very much for that, Priscilla. You should be at home not working. Okay, so I'm getting sidetracked again, so let me go back here. So and then the fifth most common mistake is leaving the wound alone to do its thing too early. So this was a horse that actually originally had a laceration to the pastern. The people got the vet out, it was looking beautiful, the antibiotics were given, everything was hunky-dory, and then they turned it out into the paddock. So the wound, the granulation tissue hadn't properly formed. It was in an area of a whole lot of movement in the pastern area. Then they shoved it out in the paddock where there's big den. and this horse came to us and they wanted us to fix it. So it's a little bit hard to get an appreciation, but this was a pony and its leg was about 4 times the size of normal. So I should have had the other leg in view so you could see, but this has got elephantitis. The whole lymphatic system is buggered. It was breaking out in sores everywhere. It had swamp cancers. It was just, this horse unfortunately was put down, and it just frustrates me so when they did the right thing in the beginning, but then they just went, you know what, it's good now, we've given it antibiotics, it should be good, and they turfed it out in an 80-acre paddock. So yeah, so that was a little bit upsetting. Now I just want to take a few minutes to tell you about an online community that I've developed after having been in the industry for over 10 years now. It's become really apparent that horse owners are starving for information on how to do the right thing by their horse. So I've developed an online community that we call Ease Education. And it's basically like-minded horse people. We get together, we discuss problems that we've got. It's moderated. I jump in and help people. So I just want to tell you a little bit about it. Let me just get down here. So the whole aim of this community is to get as much education to horse owners as possible. So we do it on a national scale. So it's not just our clients. We want to help people throughout the country. We pride ourselves that it's correct and up-to-date advice, and we're all equine vets here. Majority of the information, 99% of the information given is by myself. So you can guarantee that it's up-to-date and correct. You know, it's not something you have to question. Oh, but Sam, my horse trainer, says this, that, and the other. It's industry knowledge that has been proven. And the other aim of Ease Education is to help you reduce your vet bills. I know it sounds ironic, I'm a vet and I want people to use this, but there's so many times we go out and we're not needed. It's something simple that horse owners could have done themselves, and there's nothing worse when you turn up at 6 o'clock on a Sunday night to a hoof abscess and you think, oh my goodness, this wasn't something that was needed. So the people have paid 3 times as much because they got us out on a Sunday evening just for a hoof abscess. And sometimes it's just that reassurance that you can wait till Monday morning, or your horse isn't going to die if you can't get a vet out. So I think it's just that peace of mind that a lot of our members really enjoy. We have a lot of ways to communicate and get that reassurance. So you do have that genuine peace of mind to know that you're doing the best thing by your horse. And it's not just in emergency situations, it's simple things like worming or, getting a dental done and what to expect and things like that. So it's just guaranteed peace of mind that you are doing the right thing by your horse so you can get the most out of them and not have them out with injury or problems. So, and have them nice and healthy inside and out. So my biggest thing is knowledge is power. To be educated on the right thing by your horse is it's so powerful. You can then spread the word and be helping all of your horse friends out and know that you've got the correct advice that you're sharing as well. So knowledge definitely is power. So to become a member, what do you get? Well, it is an online community. We do have a closed Facebook group. You'll get a monthly 1-hour webinar. Now, these topics change. We've covered a lot of things, but we often get guest speakers in. And last month we had a master farrier come along and give an hour presentation on how to tell if your farrier is doing the right thing by your horse. This month, next week, if you jump in, you'll be able to catch Dr. Shannon Lee. He's a sort of internationally renowned horse dentist. He does all of the weird and wonderful cases, so he's going to present some amazing cases for us. And then the month after that, we've also got Dr. Lestrange coming in. He's the head vet for Zoetis, so a vaccination company, but we'll grill him on the problems and the benefits of vaccinating for particular diseases. So we do cover a wide variety of topics. You get a monthly educational paper. This month I've just completed the monthly paper, which is on wounds, and it goes really into depth on wounds.
and when to use certain products. So a lot more in depth than this webinar that you've seen today. And that's we try to hold a lot of information to our members, so we're giving them the whole story. So we've had we've had educational papers on weeds in Australia, so toxic weeds to horses. We've had, gosh, I can't even think now that I'm on the spot. We've got a lot in our archived database, which is also available when you join Horse Farm Eats Education. We also have an area that's called our how-to videos. So how this relates to the wound webinar, we have videos in there to show you how to bandage a horse from top to bottom. So if your horse hurts its fetlock or its carpus, its knee, there's videos in there to show you how to bandage them correctly and the do's and don'ts of bandaging. We also go through products in there and how to use the animal intake, so it's a fantastic area. We also have videos on how to platen a horse for shows. There's a video on how to make a one-person twitch if your horse needs a little bit of encouragement sometimes to be good. So there's lots of how-to videos there. We're always updating it as well. Like I said earlier, we do have a closed Facebook group, so anytime you've got a question, a concern, whether it's about a product or your horse, but even to just share your highs, winning a competition, we've got lots of people on there that post. We've got a lady teaching her young ones how to tie up, so just sharing that and getting advice from other horse owners that have been through it and how to avoid problems that they've had and just understand how to do it correctly. I moderate the Facebook group, so you can guarantee that it's going to be the correct information, and we definitely don't tolerate any negativity or judgment in that group. So it's a great, friendly Facebook group that we closely monitor. We do have a once a week Q&A session on Wednesdays. I tend to take a lunch break, and if anyone's around, they can jump on, but it's available anytime. If you can just ask a question whenever you want, day or night. I'm a bit of a night owl, so I had a lady jump on the other night at 10:30, and I just happened to be on. And then we have people check it first thing in the morning, so I can answer questions at any time of the day or night. There's an events calendar in there, so most disciplines are in there, whether it's cutting, reining, pony club, and we have events that are coming up in your area. And nationally, so you can see what's going on in the country. So we have an events calendar there. And you also have access to archived webinars and educational papers. So we have, you can always go back, and we had a webinar not long ago on ulcers in horses and things like that. So we've also covered dentistry before, so you can go back and have a look at the old webinars and educational papers. So you can actually see the article on weeds in Australia. You can print them and download them and have them at your ready all of the time. So this is just a picture of the closed Facebook group. We have quite a few members in there that love to jump on and have a chat and show us the photos of how they're going with their horses. And then over to the right, we've just got some examples of webinars that we've done. So we did have a webinar on biosecurity. We have also had saddle fitting, so we had a muscle therapy lady come on and explain about how you can tell if your horse is uncomfortable and things like that. So they're all available to you when you join Horse Eats Education. This is just our homepage, so a little blurb on what we do, and you can have a guided tour down there, and down the bottom in the pink you can see the recent webinars and then the link to the Facebook closed group. So this is where you'll find your how-to videos and things like that. So what is the investment? What's it going to cost you to become a member? Well, tonight we've got a special on. So it's $29.95 a month, but if you pay for an annual membership, it's only $299.50. So that actually gives you 2 months free. So you pay for 10 months and get 2 months free. So it's not a big investment. It's less than $1 a day. I know myself, I waste about $4 a day on a coffee. So it is less than that. And when you're looking at the outlay, it's actually if I can save you one vet visit a year, you've covered that cost. So the average cost of a vet is, you know, $150 to, you know, $300. So, and that's not for an emergency call out, that's just for a general checkup. So to be able to save one vet bill, you've covered the cost of your investment on Eve's education. So I personally think that's money well spent. And it's not just veterinary things that we cover. We also cover show prep. We've had a white paper, educational paper on, you know, things to prepare, how to prepare your horse for a show. We have barrier articles in there. So it's not just veterinary and emergency situations. It's general horse health and well-being that we cover. So, you know, knowing when to get the chiro out or the massage therapist, things like that, is what you can get out of this. And to save one of those visits would be the cost of annual membership. You can cancel at any time. There's no, you know, there's no concerns, there's no worries. If it's not for you, then you can cancel at any time. It's just as simple as sending an email and everything is cancelled. So it's not a hard process to cancel, but I'm pretty confident you'll get a lot out of it, and you know, you'll want to stay and be part of our community. We do give a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if after 3 months you're not happy, we'll give you your money back. And you know, we completely understand that some people don't have the time, but it is, you know, if you put it in, you'll get it back. So we're more than happy to give you your money back if you're not completely happy after 90 days. I've got complete confidence in this. I see every day the struggles that horse owners have, and you know, how frustrating it can be when you know there's something you've got to do for your horse, but you just can't afford it, because by the time, you know, some people live in remote places, and just to get a vet to the property is $350 to $400. So just to have that confidence and peace of mind that you're doing the right thing, and you can be confident, you know that you are knowledgeable and are doing the right thing by your horse. So peace of mind to me is priceless. So I just want to open up to any questions that anyone might have. So we did have a question on Manuka versus raw honey, and I just wanted to cover this topic. So I did say earlier in the piece that you know, Manuka honey is the best honey to use. However, any unprocessed raw honey does have healing properties, and I think there's a lot of articles out there, but when you're talking about honey, they all love this antibacterial compound that they have, which is called methyl glyoxal, and it's basically an antibiotic, but it's a lot more potent in the Manuka tree in New Zealand, but also the tea tree in Australia is our closest relative to the Manuka tree. But any raw, unprocessed honey does have this antibacterial in it, but just not as strong as the Manuka honey. So I find, I mean, personally, I do prefer the Manuka honey. Blackmores has an amazing product out called Manuka Wound Gel, which is, it has Manuka honey in it, but it's made it sort of not quite as sticky, and it's a bit thicker than honey. We go through bucket loads of that product. We are sending a picture of all of the products in an email, so that product will be on there. But raw honey definitely has healing properties, but it just is not as potent or not as strong an antibacterial as Manuka. But the foal's chest wound was just raw honey. Unprocessed raw honey, and it has to be unprocessed. If they are heat treated, so if you go and buy the honey off the shelf in Woolies, it has to be heat treated for human consumption, and that kills all of the antibacterial components in it. So it has to be unprocessed honey. So that's the first question from Nicole, was the Manuka versus raw honey. And then one of the other questions was, so what other prescription drugs can you use on wounds? What non-prescription drugs can you use on wounds once you stop bandaging them? From Sue, that question was. So there's many products out there. Just a simple white healer, so that's a non-prescription line. I think you can actually buy one of the green creams on the shelf. I know one of our produce places sells a cortisone cream on the shelf. So Predniderm and Dermapred, I think, don't quote me on that, but I don't think they're prescription lines. I think you can get them from the produce, but there is another product out there that I just can't remember what it's called. But any of your zinc cream, I'm not a big fan of Filterback, it's more of a sun cream. But there's a lot of products when you stop bandaging to keep the wound soft. You can even just use human sorbeline cream or pawpaw cream is fantastic. That sort of gel pawpaw cream, that's another natural thing I love to keep on wounds to keep them soft and allow them to heal. So we've got another, one of the common questions we get is, about ease education. Can I get this info online already, for free? And yes, you can, if you can search around and make sure you're getting it from a reputable source. But I think the thing with it is you never know whether you're getting it from a reputable source or is it just, Joe Blogs has this thought or an idea. And, we're forever going onto forums, and I've decided to stay away from forums because I get so frustrated with the advice you see being given on the forums. And often the advice is conflicting, it's contradicting. You'll have 3 people tell you one thing and then 2 people say completely the opposite. So I think it's just, understanding that this advice that we're giving is proven, it's correct, and it's the right advice. So just being able to, completely trust what you're being told and not have to sift through the 15 things that tell you one thing and then, the 2 that tell you what you were kind of thinking. Another question, my horses don't hurt themselves. Well, you're very lucky. And horses are innately accident-prone animals. So, but like I said, it's not just about if your horses hurt themselves. It is just their general health and well-being as well that we cover. So, you don't have to have an accident-prone horse or anything like that. It's just, just owning a horse is the only requirement for ease education. And knowing that you're doing the right thing by them and keeping up to date with what's required and things like that. So we do cover the biosecurity in every state. So the laws have changed, and just keeping up to date with things like that is much easier through ease education. And we've got, it does cost a bit. It certainly does. I'm not going to sit here and go $29.95 a month isn't much, but to look at it at the cost of a vet consult, even an after-hours veterinary consult, you're looking at anywhere from $250 to $500 or $1,000. So to be able to avoid one of those, it pays for itself. So we had one lady there on our membership on our Facebook, and she came home and noticed her horse had a weeping eye, and she quickly posted the photo up on Facebook, and I had a look at it and I said, oh yes, no, you need to get the vet out. She got the vet out then and there, and the initial cost of the vet was half the price of if she left it until the next morning when the eye had already started to melt. So, being able to save money that way as well was, priceless for this lady. We had another lady who lived in the middle of nowhere in Queensland, and her horse hurt itself, and she had no ability to get a vet for a week. And just being able to talk her through what to do and things like that was just, it just gave her peace of mind and allowed her to be able to save the horse. So there's just all these stories that, just people have just really enjoyed and gotten their money's worth out of becoming a member. So, I do really feel passionate about it. I love educating people, and, we get great feedback on our videos and webinars, and the more people we can educate, the better. So, if you do want to join, there will be a link to attach to this email that goes out with the webinar. So just click on that and enter your details. And I really look forward to seeing you in the closed Facebook group and being able to start your educational journey with you. So with that in mind, I will let you go, and thank you very much for attending. Good night.